In this lecture, we will discuss another very important Indian writer writing in English, and the name of that writer is Mulk Raj Anand. So Mulk Raj Anand was born in 1905 and he died in 2004. So that's the lifespan of Mulk Raj Anand. Now, first of all, we will discuss some important facts relating to Mulk Raj Anand's life and his style of writing. And then we will discuss his novels one by one. You all know that Mulk Raj Anand was a social reformer like Charles Dickens, as Charles Dickens during the Victorian period wrote social novels. Charles Dickens, he talked about the problems of Victorian society in his novels. Similarly, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about the problems of Indian society through his novels, and that's why Mulk Raj Anand is called Charles Dickens of India. You must remember, he is compared to Charles Dickens. So Mulk Raj Anand was born in Peshawar, Pakistan. However, he died in Pune. And he completed his graduation from Khalsa College, Amritsar. Then he did his PhD in philosophy on a British philosopher, and the name of that philosopher is Bertrand Russell. So he did his PhD on Bertrand Russell. You must remember these facts because you know that T.S. Eliot, he also did his PhD. He did his PhD on F.H. Bradley. So sometimes there's a question on such aspects that the writer did PhD on which writer. So T.S. Eliot, he did his PhD on F.H. Bradley, and Mulk Raj Anand, he did his PhD in philosophy on Bertrand Russell. You must correlate these two things. Then Mulk Raj Anand also worked on T.S. Eliot's magazine, The Criterion. So that The Criterion was a very popular magazine started by T.S. Eliot. So Mulk Raj Anand also worked for this magazine. Mulk Raj Anand also founded and edited. Founded means he started and edited the quarterly fine art magazine Mark. Quarterly means which was published after 3 months. So he not only founded this magazine Mark, but also edited this magazine. Then Mulk Raj Anand also wrote reviews for the newspaper Bombay Chronicles. And he also worked as a script writer for BBC London, British Broadcasting Company. तो उसके लिए उसने script writer का काम किया. Now, it was Mulk Raj Anand who included Punjabi and Hindustani idioms. Here, idiom stands for words. So it was Mulk Raj Anand who for the first time included Punjabi and Hindustani words into English. Nowadays, we often hear such words while delivering speech. When somebody delivers speech, so he uses the word lassi, jola, and they deliberately use this word. But Mulk Raj Anand was the first writer to use local words into English. Then Mulk Raj Anand, he believed in art for life's sake. What is the meaning of art for life's sake? It means a writer should write works of art. A writer should write works of art about society. A writer should deal with the problems of the society in his works. So Mulk Raj Anand, he deals with the problems of the society in his works. So Charles Dickens, he also believed in art for life's sake, because Charles Dickens, who was a very famous British novelist belonging to the Victorian period, he also talks about the problems of the society in his novels. And that's why he is compared to Charles Dickens, and he is called Charles Dickens of India. Mulk Raj Anand was also a freedom fighter, and he went to Spain to cover the Spanish Civil War as a journalist. You must remember another important fact. And he also participated in the civil disobedience movement. सविनय अवज्ञा आंदोलन जो आजादी के लिए चला था, तो he also participated in that movement. And Mulk Raj Anand, he died due to pneumonia. So these are some of the important facts about Mulk Raj Anand you must remember. Now we will talk about the prizes won by Mulk Raj Anand. Number one, Mulk Raj Anand won International Peace Prize in 1953. Then he won Padam Bhushan in 1968. But the most important prize you must keep in your mind, you should not forget, is Sahitya Academy Award. And he won this award for his autobiographical work, Morning Face, which was published in 1971. So Sahitya Academy Award, you must remember. So he won the Sahitya Academy Award for his autobiography, Morning Face, in 1971. So these are the three important prizes. Now we will talk about his novels one by one. So the first novel written by Mulk Raj Anand is Untouchable, and it was published in 1935. You must remember the date of publication, which is really very important. It is Mulk Raj Anand's first novel and the last novel. These are really very important topics, because in many competitive exams, there's a question about the writer's first novel and about the writer's last novel. So Untouchable is the first novel written by Mulk Raj Anand, and it was rejected 19 times. It was considered rubbish. But later on, when this novel was published, so it became a grand success. So Untouchable is the story of one day. You can compare Untouchable to William Golding's novel, Lord of the Flies. Do you know William Golding? William Golding is one of the famous British writers belonging to post-modern age. So he wrote the work Lord of the Flies. So Lord of the Flies is William Golding's first work. So William Golding's Lord of the Flies was also rejected. And William Golding's Lord of the Flies was considered a rubbish. Usko bakwas mana gaya. But when that novel was published, so that novel became masterpiece. So same is the case with Mulk Raj Anand, because his novel Untouchable was rejected 19 times. But when it was published, so it became a grand success. So it is a story of one day, and its introduction was written by E.M. Foster. You must remember. As I narrated in yesterday's lecture, which I delivered on R.K. Narayan, I told you that the introduction of Rabindranath Tagore's collection of poems, Gitanjali, was written by W.B. Yeats. Clear? And Gitanjali is a collection of poems which was published in 1912. And for this collection of poems, Rabindranath Tagore, he won the Nobel Prize in 1913. Then I also told you that the introduction of B.R. Ambedkar's book, The Annihilation of Caste, was written by Arundhati Roy. Similarly, the introduction of R.K. Narayan's novel, The Financial Expert, was written by Graham Greene. So you must remember these introduction. So the introduction of this novel, Untouchable, was written by E.M. Foster. E.M. Foster, I think you know, one of the famous novelists belonging to the modern age. We will discuss this writer in detail later on. So in this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he uses stream of consciousness technique. Now, what is stream of consciousness technique? So a stream of consciousness technique is one in which the writer deals with whatever goes in the mind of the central character. कि कैरेक्टर के दिमाग में जो कुछ चल रहा होता है वो बताया जाता है इसमें stream of consciousness technique में. And you know that in England, stream of consciousness technique was mastered by James Joyce. James Joyce is another very famous British writer belonging to the modern age. Then Virginia Woolf, she also uses stream of consciousness technique. So while writing Untouchable, Mulk Raj Anand was highly influenced by James Joyce. James Joyce is an Irish writer, and he has used stream of consciousness technique in almost all his works, such as Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Ulysses, The Dubliners, Finnegan Wakes. These are four very important works written by James Joyce. So, in this novel also, Mulk Raj Anand, the central character of this novel is Bakha, who is an untouchable, who is an untouchable, and whatever goes in the mind of the Bakha is revealed to us. Why? Because throughout this novel, he suffers so much humiliation. उसकी बहुत बेइज्जती होती है. Clear? किसी को अगर गलती से भी टच कर लेता है तो then he is rebuked. There a scene is created there. So whatever goes in the mind of the central character Bakha is revealed through this novel Untouchable. And that's why while writing this novel, Mulk Raj Anand was highly influenced by two persons, Mahatma Gandhi and James Joyce. James Joyce, I have informed you, because he uses stream of consciousness technique in this novel. And he was highly influenced by Mahatma Gandhi also. And this novel was written when Mulk Raj Anand was in Gandhiji's Sabarmati Ashram. So then he wrote this novel, because like Mahatma Gandhi, Mulk Raj Anand was also against caste system. He was also against untouchability, and he wanted to end untouchability. He wanted to end caste system. So through this novel, he presents the problem of the untouchables. And Mulk Raj Anand was inspired to write this novel by his aunt's experience, because once his aunt, she took food with a Muslim, and then she was highly criticized. So that incident inspired Mulk Raj Anand to write this novel, Untouchable. And as the title indicates, Untouchable, so through this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about uprooting means ending of untouchability. He talks about ending of untouchability. So this novel is set in the fictional town, means in the imaginary town of Bulla Shah. So Bulle Shah, आपको याद रखना, this novel is set in the imaginary town of Bulle Shah. Because in many competitive exams, there are questions on the setting of the novel. For example, Graham Greene's novel, The Power and the Glory, is set in Mexico. Now, on this aspect, several times questions have been raised. Similarly, Graham Greene's novel, The American, is set in Vietnam. So the setting of the novels is also very important. So this novel is set in an imaginary town of Bulle Shah. And who is the central character? Central character is the Bakha, who is an untouchable, and his work is to sweep. And this novel starts in the morning, early in the morning, and ends in the evening. So that's why it is a story of one day. Throughout this one day, Bakha, he suffers a lot. He suffers a lot of humiliation. And towards the end of this day, means in the evening, he listens a lecture delivered by Mahatma Gandhi. ठीक है? तो महात्मा गांधी एक लेक्चर देता है, उसको वो सुनता है, and Mahatma Gandhi suggests the solution to untouchability. How can untouchability be ended? So Mahatma Gandhi, he suggests that untouchability can be ended if there is flush system, if there is a toilet system. Means if in each and every house, if there is a toilet, so the untouchables, they will not have to do bad or unpleasant work of sweeping the shit. उनको shit साफ करने का काम नहीं करना पड़ेगा. In this way, untouchability will end. So a suggestion is given, a solution is given, and what is the solution? That is flush system. And Bakha in this novel with his friends plays hockey. That's another important point. R.K. Narayan's first novel is Swami and Friends. And in that novel, Swami, he plays cricket with his friends. But in the first novel of Mulk Raj Anand, Bakha, he plays hockey. So you must remember these two games also. So what are the important characters? Lakha, who is Baka's brother. Rakha, who is Lakha is Baka's father. Rakha is Baka's brother. Then Soni, who is Baka's sister. Then we have the Pandit Kalinath, who is the temple priest. Do you know Pandit Kalinath, though he considers himself a superior, and Soni, she works in the temple. So Pandit Kalinath, he tries to molest Soni, but when Soni refuses, then Pandit Kalinath, he creates a scene that she has polluted me by touching. What was the reality? The reality was that he was trying to molest Sony, but when Sony refuses, so he creates the scene. So through this incident, Mulk Raj Anand, he attacks the hypocrite Indians or the Hindus. Then we have the another character, Charat Singh, who is the hockey player. Because in this novel, so many bad incident happens to Baka, but one good incident is also shown, one good episode is also shown. Then when Baka, he visits Charat Singh, and Charat Singh asks Baka, it's a Singh, S-I-N-G-H, N is missing here. So Charat Singh asks Baka to enter his kitchen and to bring tobacco. Means he allows Baka to enter his kitchen and touch his tobacco, and then as a gift he gives a hockey to Baka. So in this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he presents some good episode, some bad episodes. So he talks about this problem of untouchability. So that's a wonderful novel written by Mulk Raj Anand, excellent novel. Then we have the second novel written by Mulk Raj Anand, and the name of that novel is Kuli, which was published in 1936. Again, I am repeating, the date of publication of this novel is really very important. First novel was published in 1935. Second novel was published in 1936. You must remember. It is a picarous novel. Now, what is the meaning of picarous novel? The word picarous has come from the word picaro, from the Spanish word picaro. This picarous word kahan se aaya? From the Spanish word picaro. And what is the meaning of picaro? Picaro means a rake. Rake meane kya hota hai? Badmash. Means this novel is also called a journey novel. Why? Because in this type of novel, the central character, he keeps on moving from one place to another. एक से दूसरी जगह पे वो move करता रहता है. So many incidents happen to the central character. Some good ones, some bad ones. So that is called picarous novel. So same happens in this novel, because the central character of this novel is Munnu, who is an orphan, jo anath hota hai, and who lives with his uncle and aunt. So then Munnu, he keeps on moving from one place to another. So through this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about exploitation of the poor by the rich. And he also satirizes the British rule in India and caste system. Is it clear? Because this novel was published in 1936, and at that time, you know, India had been a colony of Britain. Britain ka gulam tha. So through this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he attacks the British rule in India and the caste system. Munnu is the central character who lives with his uncle and aunt. But do you know, his uncle and aunt, they send Munnu to work as a servant in Babu Nathuram's house, who works in a bank. Now, Babu Nathuram's wife, Bibi Uttam Kaur, she is a very cruel lady. So she takes a lot of work from Munnu. Munnu works from morning till evening, but not proper food and clothing they are given. And one day, Munnu is beaten mercilessly. Isko bahut peeta jata hai. And that's why Munnu, he runs away from the house of Bibi Uttam Kaur, and then he reaches another village, and then he reaches to Prabdyal. Now, Prabdyal is the owner of a pickle factory. He is childless. He is very kind. So Munnu starts living with Prabhyal. The name of Prabhyal's wife is Parvati. But what happens that Prabhyal has a partner whose name is Bhandat. So Bhandat deceives Prabhyal and Prabhyal becomes a bankrupt. वो कंगाल हो जाता है. Then again Munnu becomes, you can say that, homeless. And now Munnu, he visits Bombay. And there he saves the life of the son of a worker. And then Munnu starts working in a steel company. He starts living in a colony. And then he befriends Ratan. Ratan से उसकी दोस्ती हो जाती है. And there starts Hindu-Muslim riots. वहाँ पे Hindu-Muslim दंगे शुरू हो जाते हैं. And then Munnu runs away and he runs into a car. एक कार से टकरा जाता है. Actually, that car belongs to Mrs. Mainwaring. उससे belong करती होती है, who lives in Shimla. So she takes Munnu to Shimla. And then Munnu starts living with Mrs. Mainwaring. And Mrs. Mainwaring, she exploits Munnu in triple way. Number one, Munnu works as a servant. Secondly, she uses Munnu sexually. Thirdly, he uses Munnu as a Kuli. जब भी उसने बाहर जाना होता है शिमला में, तो उसकी वो बग्गी वो खींचता है. So in this way, Munnu is exploited in triple way. And as a result, he catches tuberculosis. इसको TB हो जाता है. And at last, Munnu dies. So that's the story of Munnu, who is just a 14 years boy when the novel starts. And when the novel ends, he's just a boy of 15. And he dies in Ratan's lap. उसका जो friend होता है, उसकी गोद में वो मर जाता है. So important characters are Babu Nathuram, who is a bank clerk, Bibi Uttam Kaur, who is Babu Nathuram's shrewish wife, quarrelsome, jagadalu, patni hoti hai. Prabhyal, who is the owner of pickle factory, who is kind by nature. Then Bhandat, who is a co-partner of pickle factory, who deceives Prabhyal, and Prabhyal becomes a bankrupt. And at last, we have another important character, Mrs. Mainwaring, who is a rich lady. So these 5 characters are important. You must remember these 5 characters. Now come to the next novel. The next novel written by Mulk Raj Anand is 2 Leaves and a Bud. And this novel was published in 1937. This novel is set in a tea estate in Assam, and the name of that tea estate is Macpherson. Setting is important. And through this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he criticizes the British rule in India. He criticizes the exploitation of people by the Britishers, because this tea estate is owned by a Britishers who exploits the Indians working there. Later on, this novel was adapted into a Hindi movie, and the name of that movie was Rahi, and it was directed by K.A. Abbas. And this movie was also adapted into an English movie. This novel was also adapted into an English movie, The Wayfarer. The central character of this novel is Gangu, who is a farmer. And when he loses his land, so he decides to come to a tea estate in Assam with his family in order to earn money and in order to get his land back. But when he visits Assam, so he finds quite opposite, because there is exploitation. You can say that low wages is given, कम उनको मेहनत जो करते हैं उसको कम दिया जाता है. So in this way, Gangu is exploited and he is not able to come back. Gangu has a wife also whose name is Sajni, and Gangu's wife Sajni, she dies. And Gangu doesn't have money even to perform the last rite of Sajni. Sajni के अंतिम संस्कार करने के भी पैसे नहीं होते. And then he takes money on interest from Seth Badri Prasad, who is a money lender. Now Gangu has a daughter also whose name is Leela. Now the owner of the tea estate, whose name is Reggie Hunt, now he wants to seduce Leela. वो लीला को seduce करना चाहता है. But Gangu tries to prevent this rape. So Gangu is shot. Gangu को मार दिया जाता है. And later on, Reggie Hunt, who is a Britisher, he rapes Leela. So this is the story of 2 Leaves and a Bud, which shows the exploitations of the Indians by the Britishers. Now, another important series of novel written by Mulk Raj Anand is called Punjab Trilogy. Trilogy, I think you know, trilogy means a collection of 3 novels. A series of 3 novels is called trilogy. Why is it called Punjab Trilogy? Because all the novels are set in Punjab. In sare novel ki setting Punjab hai. And these 3 novels are The Village, Across the Black Waters, The Sword and the Sickle. So these are the 3 novels containing Punjab Trilogy. And these all novels were written when Mulk Raj Anand was in England. And the central character of all these 3 novels is Lal Singh, and his nickname is Lallu. So Lal Singh or Lallu is the central character of all these 3 novels. So it is a series of 3 novels. We will discuss the plot of each and every novel one by one. First of all, we will talk about the plot of the novel The Village, which was published in 1939, when Second World War started. So this novel was written when movement for Indian independence was going on. भारत की आजादी का जब movement चल रहा था तब लिखी गई थी. And through this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about the exploitation of the peasants. Peasants means farmers by the landlords. कैसे उनका शोषण करते थे वो बताया गया है. And the central character of this novel is Lal Singh, as I have informed you, who is also called Lallu. So Lallu lives in Nandpur, which is in Punjab. And do you know, Lal Singh family loses their land. Unki jo land hai, unke haath se nikal jati hai. And this novel ends with the death of Lal Singh's father, whose name is Nihal Singh. This is the story of the first, The Village. They live in the village. However, they lose their land, and Lal Singh's father dies. So this is the story of this first novel. What is the second novel? Across the Black Waters, which was published in 1940. Actually, now Lal Singh, he decides to get his land back. And that's why he gets himself enrolled in British Army in order to fight in Second World War. Second World War में fight करने के लिए वो अपने आप को enroll करता है आर्मी में, ब्रिटिश आर्मी में join करता है. Why? So that he may earn money and he may get his land back. So he fights for the Britishers against the Germans. ठीक है, फ्रांस में वो लड़ता है. However, when the war ends, he doesn't get anything. उसको कुछ नहीं मिलता. He doesn't get anything. He doesn't get any reward. So his dream of getting his land back is shattered. वो टूट जाता है. And when Lal Singh, he works for the Britishers in the British Army, so he also realizes that the Britishers, they are not better than the Indian. Indian से better नहीं है. तो उसका जो efforts होता है अपनी land को वापस करने का, वो fail हो जाता है. This is the story of the second book. Now come to the third novel, The Sword and the Sickle, which was published in 1942. And its original title was All Men Are Brothers. That was the original title. And the title, The Sword and the Sickle, was given by George Orwell. George Orwell, I think you know, one of the famous novelists belonging to post-modern era. And George Orwell is quite famous for his 2 novels, Animal Farm and 1984. So the title, The Sword and the Sickle, was given by George Orwell. As now, the title of this work, The Sword and the Sickle, has been taken from W.B. Yeats' poem, and the name of that poem is Poems from a Notebook, 1773. W.B. Yeats, you know, one of the famous poets belonging to the modern age. And as the title indicates, Sword and the Sickle, through this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about communism. Communism, do you know, it is a philosophy which is also known as socialism. This philosophy was given by Karl Marx in order to end caste system, in order to end discrimination. Because in this system of communism, each and everything belongs to the government. There's no private property, and each and everybody works for certain hours and they are given all the basic needs. That is the system of socialism or communism. And that's why Mulk Raj Anand, he wanted to end discrimination caste system in India. And that's why through this novel, he shows his favor for communism in India. And what happens in this novel, that Lal Singh, he comes back to India and then he takes part in a peasant movement. Peasant movement, do you know? Farmer movement. अभी अभी एक किसान आंदोलन हुआ था, वैसे किसान आंदोलन होता है 1920-21 में. He takes part in the peasant movement in UP, उत्तर प्रदेश में जो movement हुआ था उसमें वो हिस्सा लेता है. And when this novel ends, so we find Lal Singh in jail. He is imprisoned. So that's the story of these three novels. Story is interconnected. Come to the next novel. The next novel is The Big Heart. It is again the story of one day. And through this novel is set in Amritsar. And through this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about the bad effect of industrialization on petty businesses. Petty मैंने क्या होता है, छोटे छोटे जो business होते हैं उसके ऊपर industrialization का effect दिखाता है. Through this novel, he shows that industrialization is not good. It is really bad. Why? Because it will end all the traditional petty businesses. जो छोटे छोटे business थे, small businesses थे, उनको वो खत्म कर देगा. So he talks about the bad effect of industrialization on traditional business of copper utensils. So what happens that in this city Amritsar, a factory is set. Factory of copper utensil is set up. And what happens that the local people who were involved in this job of copper utensils, their business is closed. So they are forced to work in the factory. What is another important fact about this novel is that Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about the poet Puran Singh Bhakt in this novel. This is a very deep question. So the central character of this novel is Ananta, who is himself a coppersmith. And Ananta, he favors industrialization. He says that industrialization is good. Why? Because there will be production in large amount. So what happens that she has a mistress also, and the name of that mistress is Janaki, who is Ananta's mistress. Is it clear? And then we have another character, Ralia, who is an ex-laborer. Actually, Ananta, he favors industrialization, though he himself is a commercemith. So Ralia, he murders Ananta. So title of this novel, The Big Heart, is after Ananta. Ananta के नाम से ही इसका title है Big Heart, बड़ा दिल. So that's the story of this novel, Big Heart. You must remember. Next novel written by Mulk Raj Anand is The Private Life of an Indian Prince. Its introduction was written by a critic, Saros Kaus ji. आपको याद रखना है. This novel is set in Shanpur in Shimla. And do you know, through this novel, he talks about ending of princely states in India. Do you know, when India got freedom, there were many states in India. India was not united. It was divided into different states. Hyderabad, for example, Jammu and Kashmir. It was different in different states. But it was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel who united all those states. So through this novel, The Private Life of an Indian Prince, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about the ending of all states and their union in India. So there are three important characters in this novel. One is Ashok Kumar, who is the Maharaja of Shanpur. Then we have the Ganga Dasi, who is his beloved, uski premika hoti hai. And then we have Dr. Hari Shankar, who is a prince guide and narrator. So actually Ashok Kumar, who is the Maharaja of Shanpur, he falls in love with Ganga Dasi and he starts ignoring his duties. So Dr. Hari Shankar, he advises Ashok Kumar to give up Ganga Dasi and to pay attention to his subjects कि आप अपनी प्रजा की तरफ ध्यान दो. but he doesn't pay attention. So that's the story of this novel, The Private Life of an Indian Prince. Then we have the next wonderful novel, The Old Woman and the Cow. It is a feminist novel. R.K. Narayan also wrote one feminist novel, The Dark Room. And Mulk Raj Anand has also written one feminist novel, and the name of that novel is The Old Woman and the Cow. But this novel, The Old Woman and the Cow, is quite opposite or quite different from R.K. Narayan's novel, The Dark Room. Why? Because in R.K. Narayan's novel, The Dark Room, the central character Savitri, she is given no importance. Like Dark Room, this novel also talks about the cruel treatment of women by husbands, but there's a difference. Because in the Dark Room, Savitri, she doesn't get any respect. But in this novel, central character is Gauri, she gets the respect. Actually, she is the wife of Panchi. And Panchi is not a good husband. So she is fed up with Panchi and she abandons Panchi. Panchi ko chhod deti hai. And then she visits her brother's house. But the wife of her brother doesn't like her. So what does Gauri do? She also stops living with her brother. And then she starts her own business. She starts working hard. And she becomes a respectable woman. So she earns respect in the society. And do you know? And then Panchi, who earlier didn't respect Gauri, who doubted Gauri, now he agrees to live with the Gauri. So this is the story of The Old Woman and the Cow. Means the woman should not submit, the woman should not bend, rather the woman should take a strong step and she should prove herself. So that's a wonderful novel, The Old Woman and the Cow. Next novel is The Road. It's Anand's last novel. This novel is set in Govardhan, and it again the story of one day. So there are three novels by R.K. Narayan, which are, and these novels are the stories of one day. One is The Untouchable, second is The Big Heart, and the third is The Road. That's a very important question. Now, as his first novel, Untouchability, talks about untouchability, similarly, this novel, The Road, through this novel also, R.K. Narayan, he talks about untouchability. He talks about ending of untouchability. This is the story of the village Govardhan. Actually, the government wants to build a road which will link Govardhan to Gurugram, Gurgaon. Gurgaon is a city in Haryana. So the government wants to build a road which will link Govardhan to Gurugram. But the upper class people of Govardhan, they don't want that the road should be constructed. वो नहीं चाहते कि road बने. क्यों? Because they fear that if road is built, what will happen? That the people belonging to low caste, they will have access to the city. They will start visiting city. They will start earning money. And in this way, they will start getting respect. But the higher class people, they don't want that. The lower class people, they should improve their standard of living. And the central character of this novel is Bhikkhu. And at the end of this novel, Bhikkhu, he shifts to Delhi. So that's the story of The Road. Next work written by Mulk Raj Anand is Death of a Hero. It is based on a real story. Actually, this work of Mulk Raj Anand is based on a real story. Actually, there was a Muslim nationalist. कश्मीर में एक मुस्लिम नेशनलिस्ट था जो मुस्लिम्स के लिए काम करता था, and he was murdered by the Pakistan raiders. So when India and Pakistan got separated, so some robbers from Pakistan, they attacked Kashmir. Clear? So during that attack, a very good person, a very good Muslim is killed, executed. And this event took place in 1947, and the name of that Muslim nationalist was Maqbool Sherwani. Next, we have Lament on the death of a Master of Arts. So, Master of Arts stands for education. So, through this work, Mulk Raj Anand satirizes, किस पे कटाक्ष करता है, on various corruption in education. He attacks education, bad system of education. Noor is the central character of this novel, and the name of her teacher is Master Kashi Ram. There is another character in this novel, Gama, who is Noor's friend. Gama says, "What is there in education, brother? Waste of time." Because at that time, there was no good system of education. And that's why the people, they thought it's just wasters of time to study. So that is an attack on the problems in education that day. Now, 7 Ages of Man. Actually, this is the name given by Mulk Raj Anand to his 7-volume autobiography. Actually, Mulk Raj Anand, he wanted to write a 7-volume autobiography, and he wanted to call that 7-volume autobiography 7 Ages of Man. But he was able to complete only 4 or 5 autobiographies. These autobiographies are 7 Summers. Its subtitle is a memoir. Actually, the word memoir comes from the word memory. Means a work of art based on the writer's memories. Morning Face, for which he won the Sahitya Academy Award in 1971. Confession of a Lover, The Bubble. And the central character of all these autobiography is Krishan, you must remember, as Lal Singh had been the central character of Punjab Trilogy. So Krishan is the central character of all these autobiographies. Krishan stands for Mulk Raj Anand. 7 Summers, or its subtitle is Memoir, as the title indicates. Through the first autobiography, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about the first 7 years of his life. Clear? This work is divided into 2 sections, the road and the river. These have symbolic meanings. The road stands for adventurous life, and the river stands for a peaceful life. When he was a child, so he had 2 options. He either wanted to, he could lead an adventurous life. Secondly, he could lead a peaceful life. Next is The Morning Face, which was published in 1968. And for this novel, he won Sahitya Academy Award in 1971. Through this autobiography, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about his development, his growth from boyhood to adolescence. कैसे वो adolescent बना, 19 teens की age में कैसे आया. So he talks about his growth from boyhood to adolescence. And he talks about his life from 10 to 16 age. And in this work, Mulk Raj Anand, he also talks about World War I, and he also talks about Jallianwala Bagh massacre, which took place in 1919. Next autobiography written by Mulk Raj Anand is Confession of a Lover. Through this autobiography, Anand, he talks about his lost love during college years. Do you remember R.K. Narayan's semi-autobiographical novel, The Bachelor of Arts? So R.K. Narayan also talks about his love life, his college life through the novel, The Bachelor of Arts. So similarly, Mulk Raj Anand, he also talks about his love life and the college life through the autobiography, Confession of a Lover. Next work is The Bubble. It is an epistolary novel. Now, what is an epistolary novel? The word epistolary has come from the word epistle. And what is the meaning of epistle? Epistle means a letter. And this type of novel was started by Samuel Richardson. Samuel Richardson is one of the famous novelists belonging to 18th century. So, in this type of novel, the story takes place through letters. कहानी कैसे बताई जाती है? Letters के द्वारा बताई जाती है. That is called an epistolary novel. So through this novel, Mulk Raj Anand, yeah, through this autobiography, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about his life as a student and as a writer in London. Then we have the Pilpali Sahib, and through this work, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about his childhood when India had been the colony of Britain. जब इंडिया किसका गुलाम था? ब्रिटेन का. तब ये ना story of childhood under the Raj. Raj stands for the British Raj. Next work written by Mulk Raj Anand is Conversations in Bloomsbury. Bloomsbury, I think you know. Bloomsbury is quite famous for a group, the Bloomsbury group, which was founded by Virginia Woolf. So the other members of Bloomsbury group were E.M. Foster, Clive Bell, Lytton Strachey. So that group was very famous during the modern age. And Mulk Raj Anand also lived in Britain, in London. So he talks about his life in London. He talks about his life with the great writers of Bloomsbury group. So it is a memoir. Memoir means something which is based on memory. And through this work, Mulk Raj Anand, he talks about his life in London. And he talks about his conversation. जो बातचीत होती थी ब्लूम्सबरी ग्रुप की, उसकी वो इसमें बातचीत करता है, such as Virginia Woolf, E.M. Foster, Clive Bell, and T.S. Eliot. Some other important works of Mulk Raj Anand are The Hindu View of Art, Letters on India, 7 Little Known Birds of the Inner Eye, Some Street Games of India. These are some other important works of Mulk Raj Anand. Now we will talk about Mulk Raj Anand as a short story collection. Now, Mulk Raj Anand has written a number of short story collections. You must remember their names. But Mulk Raj Anand is quite famous for his one short story, The Lost Child. So he is quite famous for this short story, The Lost Child. Through this short story, Mulk Raj Anand, he conveys the masses that parents are the most precious thing for a child. एक बच्चे के लिए सबसे बहुमूल्य चीज क्या होते हैं? उसके parents. So what is the story of this short story? That a child, he visits a fair with his poor parents, and in the fair he demands so many things. As his parents are poor, so they can't afford those things. They keep on just pursuing him by giving excuses. उसको बहाना दे दे के मनाते रहते हैं. And what happens that in the same fair, the child gets separated from his parents. And then one person, he takes pity on the child. And then that person, he offers the same things to the child. But the child refuses to take anything. वो कहता मुझे कुछ नहीं चाहिए. I want my parents back. So through this short story, Mulk Raj Anand proves that parents are the most precious thing for a child. So that's very important, The Lost Child. The Barber's Trade Union, The Tractor and Corn Goddess, Reflection on the Golden Bed, The Power of Darkness, Lajvanti and Other Stories, Between Tears and Laughter, Indian Fairy Tales, and A Pair of Mistakes, Mucho Ka Ek Joda. So these are some of the famous short story collection written by Mulk Raj Anand. So that's all about Mulk Raj Anand. So I hope that you will be able to understand this lecture. So if you want to watch more videos relating to English literature, linguistic, literary term, research methodology, literary theory, literary criticism, American literature, Indian literature, European literature, so don't forget to download my app, Oxbridge English, from Play Store. And the link of this app is given in the description box. Thanks for watching the video.